In the wake of Half-Life's success in 1998, Valve and Sierra turned to Gearbox Software, who had recently developed the acclaimed expansion Opposing Force to handle a console port for the Sega Dreamcast in early 2000. Gearbox created enhanced visuals and a new side campaign titled Blue Shift, specifically for the Dreamcast version. Around the same time as the Dreamcast's commercial future grew uncertain, Gearbox began working with Sony, receiving PlayStation 2 development kits by April 2000, and started development on a separate PS2 version. For over a year, Gearbox balanced both projects, but the Dreamcast port was ultimately cancelled in June 2001. Blue Shift was salvaged and released for PC, while the PlayStation 2 version was completed and released in November 2001. While most players familiar to the franchise remember the PS2 port for its technical enhancements and the introduction of a new co-op mode called Decay, some might not be aware of the extent that Gearbox modified the original campaign levels. I specifically recall encountering areas that seemed completely different during my several playthroughs on the PlayStation 2. For this reason, I sought to compile a list of all the alterations I could identify. Using a PC mod called Yet Another PS2 Half-Life Port by modder Supadupaplex, I was able to play through the PS2 maps again on my PC. As it turns out, the new changes were more than I had imagined. Fair warning, this video may be a bit tedious, and therefore meant for true fans of the Half-Life games. In the PlayStation 2 version, the player's position is fixed within the tram, most likely to prevent disorientation caused by using a gaming controller. I've edited the map file in order to no-clip outside of the tram. This would normally go unnoticed, but these misaligned crate textures were fixed, as well as the texture and geometry of this barrel. The door that Calhoun is knocking on is recessed into the wall, like we see in Blue Shift, and the floor texture on the landing was stretched. There are several notable changes in the second cavern. Another set of railings was added to this platform, and the walkway texture was replaced. And these light fixtures were removed. The offices were given doors and glass windows, adding a bit of realism to this area. The misaligned textures on the rocket tube were fixed. The textures and fins were changed on this second rocket. This arc was adjusted, a strip of grates was added below, and the back wall texture was changed. The texture on the hatch was changed, and light fixtures were added above. We also see a notable difference in lighting. This occurs with almost every map, and the instances will be too numerous to note. A few cactus models and rocks were placed down here. The light fixtures in this tunnel were replaced with lamp models. Also throughout the entirety of the game, all the iconic red rock textures were replaced with a brown rock texture. The green glass texture was removed from this tunnel. The concrete texture on the tunnel frame was changed. Glass tubes were added over these mechanisms. The scientist knocking on the door was changed from glasses to randomized. More detail was added to this train's cargo. A suspension cable was added above the tram rail. The G-Man has switched places with this scientist for some reason. Since you're fixed into place, it's probably so that you look him in the eye when the tram stops momentarily. An invisible wall was placed in front of these locks before the map loads. The glitching geometry on this computer terminal was fixed. The misaligned texture on the security guard's desk was fixed. The desk was given a protruding surface. Additional trim was added before the first hallway. One of the scientists in this control room is missing. In addition to the rest of the high-def models in the game, all of the health and suit charging stations and retinal scanners were replaced with animated models. Some of the graphics on these animated billboards were updated. The geometry of the ladder within the elevator shaft was improved, as we will see with the majority of the ladders in the game. The electrical gadget has been changed. This wall was given a three-dimensional indentation. The mismatched orange color on the guidance signs have been fixed. You can see lasers in the ceiling. The geometry of the coolant tanks is different. The mysterious computer terminal, which doesn't appear before the incident, was removed. The missing airlock door and safety stripes were added, and the color of the door was changed. The oversized ladder just before the explosive canisters was replaced. The railing at the bottom of the freight elevator was changed. The cables above the hanging crates have had their textures realigned. A sequence was added showing the elevator doors and button braking, presumably to prevent the player from backtracking. One of the first of several notable room changes is the initial hallway in Office Complex. This was likely done to improve performance by reducing draw distance in this area. And as a consequence, the path that this air duct takes was also changed. The pushable table was removed from this hallway. In the bonus area where you can find a shotgun and save Barney, the ladder and rail were changed. A lamp was added over this health charger in the flooded room. The hanging scientist was also removed. Before falling through the ceiling tiles, this black wall was replaced with drywall and an air duct was added. Transistors in this destructible television were removed. The barnacle was removed from this room. The yellow doorstop, aka cheese wedge, was removed.
How interesting.
The ladder leading up to the maintenance area with the shotgun was replaced. Another barnacle was removed. Another ladder was replaced. The misaligned textures in this crawl space were fixed. The exit sign near the cafeteria is illuminated. Near the start of We've Got Hostiles, a misaligned texture on a crate was fixed. Another 2 barnacles were removed. Near the beginning of the rail system in Blast Pit, a red light was removed. After the area where the player crawls through a pipe, a door and a sign were added. 2 sets of railings were added to this ledge. An alcove was removed. A broken bridge was added. An access tunnel with caved-in debris was added. This, and the previously mentioned door, add a sense of realism to this area. Without them, the only access point into the rocket test labs were by way of pipes, which isn't believable. Null textures were added to the tops of some light fixtures and other geometry that the player would not normally see. A null texture, when used on geometry, causes no texture to render, which would increase performance. This was done sparingly throughout the PS2 version, but the top of this lamp is notable since you can see it while riding up the service elevator. The corridors within the main silo no longer have gaps along the sides. In the control room, the electrical box was removed, the monitor geometry was simplified, and the second cable was removed. The ring that suspends the rocket engine was simplified into a complete platform. The crates blocking the ladder were removed. The glitch texture, which creates a hole in the wall, was patched. The pipe pouring toxic waste and the ledge below it were removed. The liquid toxic waste at the bottom of the blast pit was removed and replaced with a simple green texture. The first ladder in the Oxy and Fuel map was moved to the side. In the sewer section, the water was given a bit of wave height. This continues to occur with most bodies of water in the PS2 version, and are too numerous to note. Also, the transparency was removed. The sewer grate where you leave the tunnel was improved. In the power section of Blast Pit, the pendulum effect on the hanging hooks was removed. The color of the water below the blast pit was changed, and transparency was removed or reduced. The tiles along the wall were replaced with a corrugated steel texture. The geometry on the spilled toxic water barrel was reduced, and the textures were aligned, and the puddle of toxic waste was improved. Fixture was added to the back of these pipes underwater. This section was improved. Caution stripes and steel tread plate textures were added. The ladder was moved and a handrail was added, presumably to reduce the incident of the player climbing up the wrong side. The missing section of the damage trigger in the toxic waste was corrected. The waterfalls of toxic waste were given a scrolling texture. Blue lights were added, and several red lights were added along this section. A bridge was added over the large toxic waterfall. Caution stripes were added along the hatch on the pipe. The lighting was fixed on the extendable portion of the pipe. When falling through the broken pipe, the room you land in is flooded, preventing the player from taking fall damage. We see that this is caused by a broken pipe, and a rubble pile was added to contain the pooling water. The train car is now behind a gate. The placement and number of barrels were changed. There are less vortigaunts in this area. The texture on the wood planks blocking the track control room was changed. In this silo, the placement of the room where the bull squid pulls the grunt was moved. In the room where the power is turned on, the geometry of the railing was simplified and replaced with a mesh texture. The purple lighting on the walls was removed. Headcrabs no longer drop from this air duct. There are less grunts in this area. The water is now lower than the surrounding tracks instead of higher. The steel textures on this upper section of the railway were replaced with concrete textures. The little red light on the side of the crane arm is still here, but the light is off, and the safety stripe texture was aligned. The glitched or missing texture on the side of this track was fixed. The chair in this office is no longer pushable. The Easter egg of Dave Riller's name was removed, reducing the total number of world poly count, improving performance. A brand new section was added. The player eventually leaves the train at a secure access door and instead is required to enter a new room. Playtesters likely found this area too difficult to encounter these grunts while still on the train. Another red light on a crane arm was turned off. And again in another place. The ladder texture was changed in the rocket silo. The texture was flipped to the correct way on the rocket so that the NASA logo is readable. When reaching the broken transit lift, we see the track is bent, and there is falling debris. At the bottom of the lift, there is now signage referencing the transit system. The concrete texture on the outside of the Rocket Launch Control Center was changed. The wall textures within the flooded silo were changed. A trim texture was added around this broken door, and the door opens the other way. The ladder in the lab above the ichthyosaur encounter was changed. The hidden HEV charger above the crane arm was removed. The breakable wet floor sign was removed. The floor texture was changed. The black wall and the red light bars were removed from the bottom of this deep pit in the second ichthyosaur encounter. The ladder leading up to the generator room was changed. The gap behind this military crate was made smaller so that the player can no longer fall behind and get stuck. The texture alignment was fixed on this broken half of the ladder. The misplaced health charger in the ceiling was removed. The ceiling texture nearby was changed. The area above the trash compactor was notably overhauled. The area now includes a door and some windows, a grate, additional steel beams. The hatch was given more detail, and the overhang was removed. On the exit pipe from the trash compactor, an iron fixture was added. An ammo cache and a dead Barney were hidden on this cliff. The glitched hole in this pipe was patched. These pipes in the ceiling have a different texture. The ladder on this first vat is noticeably thinner. In In the second area with toxic vats, the first vat has a rust texture applied to the top. In the section with the steam pipes, the Z-fighting has been fixed. In the conveyor belt control room, the shelving unit is no longer breakable. The ashtray was removed. Along the conveyor belts, when you go around this corridor, the trip mines have been removed. Near the end of the chapter, the ladder has been moved aside. A ledge has been added, and a gate has been added that requires you to turn a wheel. And again behind it, we see a broken turn wheel. This might serve to keep the player from backtracking. In the room with the trip mines, the computers are no longer breakable. Outside the lab, there is an invisible wall preventing you from jumping over this fence. The texture was realigned on this tunnel frame. These red explosive barrels spin as they fly into the air. An entire new back section of the dam was added. The dead scientist and the HEV battery were removed. The Z-fighting and gaps under these pipes have been fixed. The boulder between the areas with the electric fence and the hatch access wheel has been removed. Inside the storm drain, the yellow lights have been aligned with the middle of the pipe. In the cave where you first acquire the RPG, the texture on the frame of the gate has changed. This door now has a frame, and the door is no longer breakable. These signs for the storage facility have been pulled away from the wall to prevent Z-fighting. The bombing sequence along this wall no longer occurs. Near the barracks, the sequence of the window glass breaking was removed. An alcove was removed from the first floor of the barracks. The bunk beds were removed from the second floor and this entire room was shortened. The rail geometry was simplified and replaced with a mesh texture. You now enter the weapons storeroom from the other side. The light switch was removed and the lights are initially on. There are less breakable crates, and the spare crossbow was removed. In the adjacent destroyed building, this normally inaccessible room was completely removed. Blue trim was added around these doors. and we also see it extend across the floor in this alcove. The rotating radar dish was removed. The shields on the mounted gun have a transparent mesh. The texture on the ceiling above the gun has changed to wood panels. The alien growth was removed. The alien growth was also removed from the air duct with the snarks. The alien trampoline spore near the cannon was removed. In the destroyed building after the APC, the textures have been replaced and the ceiling has been raised. In the second destroyed building with the Barney, the textures have been replaced, and the geometry under the stairs has been smoothed out. In the hallway after the security guard booth, the textures have been replaced. The initial Garg sequence has been improved. The SUVs were replaced with models and a glass breaking effect. And the damage on the dumpster was changed. And again with the third SUV. The ceiling was changed. In the area with the tactical map, the texture was replaced on the top of the wall. The cabinet doors were removed at the top of the ramp. The trim texture on the window frame was aligned. Inside the elevator, which is normally not accessible, the triangle button and the unused level transition were removed. Going down the ramp, the ceiling texture was replaced. And again where you find the RPG. The stop sign geometry was made into a hexagon. The textures on the sewer hatch were changed. The glowing green texture for the spilled toxic waste was made to match the toxic waste seen in the earlier parts of the game, including the dripping portion, which I had never noticed until now. There's one less grunt in the area before the tank. Another instance of a railing being changed. More crates were added near the second radiation unit, providing some ammo and additional health. The tank interior, hatch, and ladder were improved. When firing the tank, a detailed hole is blasted through the gate, instead of being completely destroyed. The tunnel wall behind is initially destroyed. The one-of-a-kind alien turret was removed, and replaced with crates, providing new item drops. The seat and console textures inside the truck were aligned. In the area with the assassins, the textures were aligned on the underside of the catwalk. The sequence of the two Vortigaunts fighting was removed. Only one Vortigaunt remains. While swimming through the pipe, you reach an entirely new area. This was likely added to reduce draw distance. There are purple lights in the second elevator. Outside the guard booth, the hallway was changed, again to reduce draw distance caused by the long hallway. In the blue teleportation puzzle room, a lip has been added along the wall. In the red hallway before the final portal, the 3 head crabs were removed. The glowing crystals in Gonark's tunnel have been changed from teal to gold. As well as the lighting emitted from the plant lights. In the first map of Interloper, the vortigons on the surface have been removed. In the cave, the webbing immediately breaks upon contact, and flesh jibs are produced instead of rocks. The head crabs and bull squid have been removed. The manta ships have been doubled in size, albeit rather crudely. The number of barrels containing alien grunts has been reduced. In the alien air ducts, before the map transition, the misplaced texture has been fixed. In the final map before Nyloth, the number of floating rocks has been reduced. The large spikes now cast a shadow. The misplaced floating spike has been removed. The textures and geometry of this highest platform were modified. The textures in Nyloth's first teleportation destination have been completely changed, and is now much easier on the eyes. In the second teleport destination, the textures in the alcove were changed. In the third destination, the floor texture was changed. The living scientist was removed and replaced with 3 HEV batteries. The alien sky was removed from the area with the tanks.
For the time being, thanks to you. Quite a nasty piece of work.
The exit sign in the tram is illuminated.
Deciding what to do. If you're interested,
With cheats enabled, the G-Man can now be killed.
I can offer you no chance of winning. Rather an anti.
Thanks for watching this far. As a bonus, we'll take a look at the hazard course. The first map was extended to include a new section where Gordon reaches the training facility from the Black Mesa transit system, and speaks to a few scientists.
I wonder if they're needed for today's training run. Good morning, Gordon. Welcome to the Black Mesa training facility. Things are in a state of commotion this morning, but the training facility's software should be in working condition. Please listen carefully, as there is a little paperwork to take care of before we get started. Oh, I see that you have already signed our legal disclaimer. I, Gordon Freeman, hereby agree to the following terms, blah, blah, blah. In any case of serious injury, dismemberment, toxic poisoning, burns, rashes, lesions, blah, blah, etc., hereby agree to waive all rights as an employee of the Black Mesa facility. Okay, very good. And if there are no questions, then please step through this door to begin your training.
The room with the first hologram was enlarged to include the suit within a chamber surrounded by computer gadgets, rather than the suit standing alone on a catwalk. As a result, the next room is empty. The player can no longer jump over the railings to their death.
Moving around in your HEV suit.
For this reason, the area within the canal cannot be reached. So the ladder and door functionality were removed. Security doors were added to the scientist observation areas. The hallway before the long jump module was extended, due to the room where you collect it being fitted with computer gadgets.
Jumping requires its own charging module, seen here.
In the spinning bridge training, the two tanks were given a new texture, and shortened so the player cannot long jump onto them to skip the puzzle. Trim textures were added to the windows. The windows are now indestructible. The back wall texture was changed. A third window and a door were added. The player can now easily access the observation deck. Tracks were added below the moving targets. An entirely new room was added for auto-targeting training.
Please advance to the next area.
The Z-fighting caused by the overlap of the rail and the wall was corrected. The elevator cabin was made smaller. The player is now stripped of their weapons, and a message from the holographic assistant was added to explain this.
Proceeding to personnel area. Removing weapons now.
There is only one security guard in the NPC training area.
To the door to the next room.
The windows were removed from the final room. The two red lights along the track were deluminated. A red railing was added to the back of the train tunnel. Well, that's it. This is everything I could find. Thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed this. Please like, comment, and subscribe.
Mesa hazard course. You are now fully certified for use of the HEV Mark IV protective system.